She surprised everyone with a whim, a hidden billionaire boss undercover in a heartfelt moment. The rain poured heavily, a relentless patter that created a soft retreating melody as Emma Thompson busily served her customers, her quaint cafe bustling with life and the rich scent of coffee enveloping the space. Yet, beneath her warm smile, a storm brewed in her heart. Financial strains threatened her small business, and survival hung precariously in the balance. Every order she took felt heavier than the one before, each cup poured a little more desperate than the last, as doubts about her future seeped into her thoughts. What if I can't make this work? The question lingered, refusing to leave her mind. Just then, the bell above the cafe door jingled, and a scruffy stranger stepped in, dripping rainwater onto the floor. "Can I get a cup of black coffee and something to eat?" he asked, looking out of place in her cozy atmosphere. His oversized clothes and wild hair made him seem like he stumbled out of a different world, but Emma didn't hesitate. No, when she looked at him, she saw a person in need, just like her. She poured his coffee, curious about the stories hidden beneath his disheveled exterior. Their conversation flowed effortlessly through the air, sharing smiles and laughter that momentarily brightened her otherwise clouded mind. He listened as she spoke of her dreams, illuminating her aspirations beyond just keeping the lights on. She wanted to share her culinary talents with a wider audience. The notion of expanding her cafe danced in her imagination like the steam rising from the coffee cup. "How do you do it?" he asked, truly intrigued. "You manage to keep smiling even when things get tough. What if it can't last?" A nagging voice retorted in her mind, reminding her of her ever-looming financial worries. Before she could answer, he dropped a bombshell. "I think you should cater an upcoming corporate event. Your food deserves a bigger platform." The offer felt surreal, a golden ticket painted with immense pressure. "Why would you invest in someone like me?" she asked, suspicion tinged with the flicker of hope. But in his eyes, she recognized integrity, an unexpected bond forming. Before she could embrace this new path, a familiar shadow loomed. Her ex-husband's voice echoed in her mind, filled with scornful taunts. "You'll never be anything other than a failure," he had said while their marriage crumbled. In a swirl of emotions, doubt clawed at her resolve. Could she stand up against his ghosts? Just as quickly as light broke through clouds, darkness threatened to sink its claws into her spirit. As preparations mounted for the event, life grew overwhelming. Each night, she'd stay up late testing new recipes while managing the whims of her 2 children. Tension came to a head when her ex confronted her, criticizing her ambitions. "Why do you think you can change? You're just a waitress." Anguish wound tight in her chest, whispering she wasn't enough. Her confidence wavered, muscles tense, heart racing. Was this the moment she crumbled? "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The grand day of the event closed in, and an avalanche of worries threatened to bury her. Each dish she prepared was a battle of self-doubt, her ex's sneering gaze flickering behind her eyelids every time she tried to find solace. But perhaps she was stronger than she believed. Couldn't all those late-night hours mean something? With every ounce of her being telling her to retreat, a quiet spark of defiance ignited. Emma took a breath, stealing her mind. She yearned to break free from the chains that held her tight. This was her moment, no one would take that away. The bustling ballroom awaited her presentation. Emma steeled herself, ready to reclaim her narrative. Would she finally be able to silence her past? The aroma of spices filled the air as Emma arranged the last platter of her signature appetizers. Everything was sharp, vibrant, and more polished than she had ever imagined. Each brush of her hand smoothed away the remnants of her insecurities, but the weight of expectation pressed heavily on her shoulders. As much as she tried to focus on the task at hand, memories of bitter criticism from her ex-husband pulsed through her mind like a relentless drumbeat. "Just a waitress," she repeated quietly to herself, a mantra both bitter and defiant. With one deep breath, she inhaled the familiar scents of her kitchen, drawing strength from the love and creativity she poured into each dish. Today was about more than just survival. It was about transformation, growth, and perhaps a chance to rewrite her identity. Stepping into the grand ballroom made her pulse quicken. The opulence of the chandeliers and polished marble floors felt miles away from her café. A jolt of panic threatened to consume her as an array of elegantly dressed guests chattered in clusters, their laughter echoing against the high ceilings. Yet, in the midst of the dazzling chaos, a flicker of resolve ignited within her. "Focus, Emma. Just do your best," she murmured, mentally pacing herself. She glanced around and saw the corporate client for whom she had catered, regally sipping a glass of champagne. That was the man who had believed in her. He nodded encouragingly, and in that moment, she felt an inkling of trust in herself dawdle in her heart. With her confidence precariously balanced, Emma made her way toward the exquisite buffet table, a centerpiece of her labor. As guests began to sample her offerings, she watched the expressions transform their faces. Curiosity melted into delight, apprehension turned to approval. For a moment, she caught glimpses of herself mirrored in their reactions. Each smile they offered became a tiny victory against her swirling doubts. The chaos that whirled around her shifted slightly, allowing space for creativity. She pooled her energy, focusing on the next course of action, how to engage with the guests and conduct herself with poise. As she stepped away from the buffet, she struck up conversations. Her hands gestured animatedly, her passion for food flowing freely. The unexpected pleasure of discussing her culinary inspirations revived her spirits. Yet, just as she began to revel in the moment, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd, her ex-husband. His presence dripped with arrogance, each step a reminder of the past she longed to escape. A smirk played on his lips as he caught her gaze. "Didn't he think you could turn a cafe into a gala?" he sneered, and the word struck her like a weight descending from the ceiling. The flood of humiliation surged, nearly unmooring her newfound confidence. In that instant, the laughter faded, the elegant decor dimmed, and all she could hear was his voice. "You're just a waitress." Emma inhaled sharply, desperately reminding herself who she was today. No longer was she that defeated woman, shackled by failures. Empowerment swirled within her, surging forth like a tide. Each guest's satisfied expression filled her with a sense of purpose. She held her ground, standing tall despite the weight of his belittlement. "I am so much more," she declared silently, eyes narrowed. Just then, the corporate client approached, breaking through the haze of her self-doubt. "Emma, this is exceptional," he exclaimed, genuine admiration lighting up his eyes. Before she could reply, a deep breath calmed her racing heart. It wasn't just about the food, it was a moment of clarity, a recognition of herself beyond the negativity that had clouded her journey. Strengthened by his praise and swiftly building confidence, she turned back to address the crowd, her voice resonant with newfound authority. "Thank you all for being here. It would be my pleasure to share my story along with these dishes," she said, catching the eyes of her ex-husband. His smirk faltered as she spoke with conviction. There it was, a turning point. The chance to not only redefine herself in this moment but to dismantle the shadows of her past. The past may have molded her, but it wouldn't dictate her destiny. She felt that change ripple through the room as her words resonated. Yet, the path ahead still felt daunting. Emma glanced back toward her ex, determination coursing through her. The next challenge awaited, but now she knew the fight within herself was stronger than the fears that weighed her down. As the applause rippled through the ballroom, she realized she had stepped into the light, but the shadows of her past still loomed. Would she be able to confront her ex-husband and redefine their relationship? The moment of truth awaited. Emma took a moment to absorb the applause, her chest swelling with pride. The echoes of admiration wrapped around her, chasing away the remnants of self-doubt that had clung so tightly. Yet, her gaze remained fixed on her ex-husband, whose smirk had faded to confusion, then anger. The absence of control in his demeanor sparked a new sense of empowerment in her. It was as if she held the reins of her own narrative for the first time. She had crafted this moment, each dish a thread in the tapestry of her professional resurrection. As guests continued to engage eagerly with the food, their joy fanning the flames of her burgeoning confidence, she felt the stirring need to confront the lurking shadow of her past. Standing across the room, he was a vivid reminder that while she may have found her voice, the journey was far from over. "Emma," a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was her corporate client, a broad grin plastered on his face. "What you've done here is incredible. I have a friend who owns a restaurant chain, he'd love to partner with you." The prospect clawed at her mind, igniting a flicker of ambition within her. "Thank you, that would be amazing," she replied, trying not to let her excitement bleed through her professional demeanor. Despite the whirl of possibilities, her determination to stand tall and confront her past held stronger sway. As she dipped into the stream of conversation, the noise of the ballroom faded into a dull murmur. The words of encouragement from the guests floated like a soothing balm over her racing heart. But then, she caught sight of the figure moving towards her ex-husband. "Looks like you're enjoying your little celebration," he mocked, a calculated coolness in his tone. The familiarity of his contempt twisted in her stomach. It was a tight band of tension she had grown too accustomed to. "That little celebration is the culmination of my hard work," she responded, her voice firm. "It's not just a success, it's proof that I'm not defined by your expectations." His brows raised slightly, as if surprised by her assertiveness. "You know, it's easy to fool a few partygoers. But you can't escape the truth," he sneered, leaning closer. "No matter what you do here, you're still just a waitress to the world." The air turned thick with unspoken conflict, yet Emma felt the heaviness in her chest lifting. She stared into his eyes, searching for something she could never find validation. Instead, she located the remnants of the man who had tried to diminish her spirit, and in that moment, an idea crystallized. "No," she replied, maintaining steady eye contact. "I am a chef. I am a business owner. I am becoming who I want to be, and your words hold no power over me." The silence hung between them, a taut wire straining against the tension. She could feel the growing warmth within her as her declaration settled into reality. No longer was she just a reflection of his scorn, she was becoming fully realized. His shoulders stiffened, his surprise shifting into a rare look of vulnerability, perhaps a realization that she had finally broken free from his grasp. With a purposeful breath, she turned her back on him, choosing instead to engage with those who truly appreciated her work. The laughter and conversation of the guests embraced her anew, lifting her spirits. Yet, as she maneuvered through the ball, she felt her heart race. The confrontation had been liberating but left a fissure in her composure. Later that evening, after the excitement of the event faded, Emma retreated to her café, exhaustion draping over her like a heavy blanket. She revitalized her inventory of spices, ready for the early morning preparations. Thoughts of the night played over and over, but she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that the confrontation was not as final as she desired. Unexpectedly, the door swung open, a swirl of cool air carrying in the hefty scent of rain. Standing on the threshold was a figure she had never expected to see that night. The corporate client from earlier stepped inside, his expression earnest, bearing what could potentially be another turning point in her journey. "I think we should talk about your future," he said, his tone serious yet promising. The spark of possibility ignited in her chest again, but lingering shadows also whispered of caution. Would this be the opportunity she longed for, or a chance to set her on a challenging path? The decision before her felt monumental. As she stood there, caught between the past and the potential ahead, she realized her journey was about to take an unexpected direction. Would she seize the moment to innovate her professional identity, or would the shadows of doubt creep in once more? The answer awaited just beyond that threshold, leaving her heart pounding with anticipation. Emma took a deep breath, letting the suffocating tension within her dissipate as she stepped toward her corporate client. His serious demeanor signaled this was no casual conversation, it held the potential to redefine her path. "Let us talk," she said, her voice steady despite the swirling apprehension. She gestured to a booth in the back of her cafe, away from the dim glow of the dining area where laughter and chatter danced around them. As they settled in, the ambient sounds became a distant murmur, amplifying the gravity of what lay ahead. "Your event showcased a talent that I didn't expect," he began, leaning forward, his eyes assessing. "You have real potential, Emma. I'm not just talking about culinary skills. You have this ability to connect with your audience. That's rare." Her pulse quickened at his words, the unanticipated affirmation sparking a flicker of hope. "Thank you," she replied honestly, uncertainty cloaked in determination. "I've worked hard to cultivate that connection. I want people to experience my food in a way that resonates with them." He nodded, clearly recognizing her conviction. "Exactly. But here's the thing. I've had my eye on you because I believe you could do more. My friend's restaurant chain is looking for a chef to create an exclusive menu. It's a partnership, but it requires considerable commitment." Emma's mind raced. A chance to showcase her abilities on a larger platform, a dream come true. But could she balance the risks that came with such a venture? Would stepping into a larger arena mean leaving behind the intimate community she had built in her cafe, which had become her sanctuary? "Emma, this could mean expanded resources, support for your ideas, and a wider audience," he continued, sensing her hesitation. "You won't just be a chef, you'll be a culinary innovator." The realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. This wasn't simply about prestige, it was a means to take back her narrative from the hands of her past. Yet, the shadows of doubt whispered in her ear. Was she ready for this leap? "What if it doesn't work?" she asked, hardly recognizing her own voice as it trembled slightly. "What if I fail? What if I become just another cog in a machine?" He leaned back, and for the first time, his expression softened. "You won't know unless you try. Staying where you are might feel safe, but it also stifles growth. Success isn't guaranteed," he conceded, "but neither is failure. You have to decide what you want more, comfort or the chance to evolve into the person you aspire to be." His words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Emma's heart raced again, caught between the possibilities. The cafe, with its familiar smells and cozy atmosphere, represented the old Emma, tentative, cautious. This new opportunity represented the embodiment of her transformation, the chef she had fought to become. "I want it," she declared suddenly, surprised by both the clarity of her own resolve and the gall that surged within her. "I want to evolve. I want to create something extraordinary." The client grinned, and for the first time in what felt like ages, Emma felt a clear path forward. Her journey wasn't just about overcoming the shadow of her past, it was about forging an identity that fully embraced her ambitions and desires. As they delved into the nuances of the potential partnership, ideas igniting like fresh flames, Emma felt a surge of energy. Yet, deep down, an unsettling thought lingered. For every action, there would be a reaction. This opportunity could bring the spotlight she craved, but it would also demand sacrifices. Decisions lay ahead with weighty consequences. Would embracing this partnership grant her newfound success, or would it plunge her even deeper into the maelstrom of expectations and pressures? As she crafted plans and visions for her culinary creations, the specter of her ex-husband flickered in her mind, a reminder of both failure and resilience. The louder her ambition grew, the more she questioned whether she was truly ready for the journey ahead. Emma's heart raced as the enormity of her ambitions collided with her fears. The promises of the future glimmered enticingly, yet she sensed the shadows gathering, a reminder that every potent opportunity holds the potential for unexpected strain. "You'll let me know your decision soon, right?" he said, leaning back in his seat, keen anticipation etched upon his face. As she nodded, the weight of her choice loomed heavily. What if this was the moment that redefined her not only as a chef but as a woman reclaiming her life? The stirring energy tempered by shadows of doubt flickered within her. "Of course," she replied, her smile masking the flurry of questions. Would courage propel her onward, or would the fears of her past pull her back into its tangled web? The choice was emerging, and she could feel the tides of change surging around her. Emma could sense the crossroads approaching, not just in her career but in every aspect of her existence. With a newfound determination, she left their meeting grappling with one particularly heavy truth: the time had come to face everything. But as she stood just outside her café, absorbing the dawn's early light, a thought jolted through her: if she dared to step forward, what consequences awaited? Would rising to meet the challenge inevitably mean confronting the most powerful specter from her past once more? Emma walked back into the café, the familiar scent of freshly baked pastries swirling around her, yet it felt different now. Each grateful smile from her loyal customers tugged at her heartstrings, reminding her of what she had built. This was more than a café, it was a manifestation of her resilience. But now, a new dream beckoned, one that threatened to eclipse her cozy existence. As she moved through the intimate space, she considered the implications of her client's offer. It was more than just a larger stage, it promised resources and a team to bring her wildest culinary dreams to life. But would the cost be too great? The pressure of a larger audience, the scrutiny that came with it, could she withstand that scrutiny? Emma caught her reflection in the glass refrigerator doors. The woman's eyes staring back appeared resolved yet slightly anxious. How could she reconcile the quiet chef she had nurtured within her with the bold innovator the corporate world demanded? This required more than culinary prowess, it demanded relentless tenacity and marketing acumen she hadn't had to consider before. The café's bell chimed, signaling a new customer. Old habits kicked in, and she slipped into familiar routines, charmed by the notion that perhaps she didn't have to abandon her roots. As she served a steaming cup of coffee, she shared snippets of personal stories, feeding not just their bodies but their souls, a testament to what the café stood for. Yet in the back of her mind, doubts nested. Could she forge a new identity while holding on to what she cherished? One part of her yearned for stability, the other craved the thrill of risk, the allure of leaping into the unknown. Every time she envisioned that exclusive menu, she felt exhilaration mixed with a gnawing fear. Later that evening, she closed the café, the silence surrounding her became a haven for contemplation. She sat on the patio, staring at the streetlights flickering like stars in her own universe. What if she approached this partnership not as a compromise but as an evolution? She had often closed herself off, fearing vulnerability would invite failure. If she were to take on this new role, she needed to embrace it authentically and put forward the real Emma, colors bright and unapologetic. She pulled out a notebook, the very one she used to jot down ideas for new recipes. Instead, she filled pages with thoughts on what her exclusive menu could embody. Not just dishes, but stories. Flavors infused with the essence of her experiences, reflecting her journey from a timid cook to a passionate chef. That's where her strength lay, in connection. If she could convey her story through her food, she could invite others to share in her evolution. As she strategized, the night unfolded around her, the moonlight offering a sense of clarity. However, reminders of her past still crept in failed attempts, the pain of her previous life looming larger than ever. To embrace this opportunity meant confronting those memories head-on, acknowledging not just what she had succeeded in but also what had brought her to this moment. Emma's contemplation crystallized into a decision: she would create that extraordinary menu, but it would be her own, rich with authenticity and designed to connect. In this, she would not only share her food but also the story of her rebirth, a chef who dared to expand her world while remaining true to herself. With a surge of determination, she stood up, ready to plunge into this unknown territory. But the lingering specter of her ex-husband loomed. Success would inevitably thrust her back into his consistent presence, a reminder of the life she had fought hard to leave behind. As she locked up the cafe for the night, Emma could feel the tension building within her. Would the journey to embrace this new opportunity mean she would have to directly confront her past? The answer teased at the edges of her thoughts, dark and enticing. In her pursuit of culinary artistry, she realized she was on the brink of wrestling not just with ambitions but with the very essence of her identity. Tomorrow, she must face the inevitable, a meeting not only with her new collaborators but also with the truth of who she once was. Would this confrontation lead to clarity or chaos? The specter was waiting, and she felt it stirring her past, ready to emerge as her greatest adversary. The morning sun filtered gently through the cafe's windows, casting a warm glow on the countertops. Emma inhaled deeply, the aroma of coffee blending with her morning determination. Today was the day she would step beyond the comforting shadows of her past and confront the challenge ahead. As she brewed the first pot of coffee, her fingers wrapped around the familiar handles, grounding her in the present while simultaneously catapulting her into the future. She wiped down the counters, her movements confident. Each stroke felt like a preparation for the storm she was about to encounter. The meeting with her new collaborators marked a pivotal moment in her career. Would she step boldly into this new realm, or would hesitation tether her to the past she yearned to escape? The cafe buzzed with the familiar chatter of her regulars, and for a moment, she reveled in the comfort of their presence. Eyes shining with warmth, they shared their morning routines with her, discussing everything from weekend plans to comical mishaps of the past week. Yet, as she listened, a voice lingered in her mind, the persistent reminder of everything she feared. It wasn't just the meeting that loomed ominously, it was the presence of her ex-husband, woven into many of these conversations. As the last customer waved goodbye, promising to return for lunch, Emma took a deep breath, allowing the cafe's comforting aura to wrap around her. She had built this place on resilience and passion, qualities that could guide her through the impending confrontation. The decision to create her exclusive menu surged back to her mind. This was her chance to tell her story, not just through her dishes, but through her very presence. Gathering her things, she closed the cafe's door behind her and set off toward the office where the meeting would take place. Each step echoed in her mind, reminding her of the risks she was about to take. As she approached the gleaming building, the sharp contrast from her rustic cafe sent a shiver through her. This world was polished and demanding, she could easily drown in its expectations if she let herself. Inside the conference room, sleek furniture and imposing artwork surrounded her. It was a stark reminder of the corporate persona she had to adopt, but as she settled in and prepared her notes, she felt a flicker of the chef whose identity had begun to bloom just nights before. She wasn't merely a face in the crowd, she was a creator of art, an inventor of flavors, and she could wield that power. Minutes ticked by, and one by one, the executives entered with their polished smiles and firm handshakes. Among them, she recognized Caleb, the one who had reached out to her with the proposition. His eyes reflected ambition, but they also held a glint of understanding that stirred her resolve. "Emma," he greeted, his voice smooth yet warm, "we're eager to hear your vision." Emma squared her shoulders, letting the moment solidify her intention. With every part of her, she needed them to see not just her culinary ability, but the heart behind it. She unveiled her concept, layering her words with the stories that flavored her dishes, the sweet and the bitter alike. As she spoke, she noticed the executives leaning in, intrigued by the authenticity she poured into her narrative. But as the dialogue flowed, a shadow flickered in her consciousness, the recollection of her former life, an echo of doubt whispering that she didn't belong here, that she was just a cafe owner with dreams larger than her reality. Yet she pressed on, challenging those thoughts, allowing her passion to override the trepidation lodged deep within. The meeting concluded with an enthusiastic response, but as she stepped out of the conference room, a familiar figure loomed at the exit, her ex-husband, his presence both unwelcome and inescapable. The fleeting moments of triumph she had felt a second ago now seemed fraught with uncertainty. Would this confrontation unravel everything she had fought to build? As he approached, her heart raced not with the thrill of success, but with a primal instinct to retreat. But now, she realized, her resilience was built not solely on achievements alone, it was forged in the fires of adversity, and she could wield it against the person who had once diminished her. The time had come to face not just him but the reflection of every insecurity he represented. Could she dismantle the remnants of her past and emerge stronger? The stakes were rising, and the outcome would define more than just her culinary journey, it could reshape her identity entirely. Emma took a deep breath, ready to reconvene with her past, but this time, armed with the strength of her culinary dreams. Emma's breath caught in her throat as her ex-husband approached, his expression a mask of neutrality that belied the turmoil she felt. How dare he walk into her moment of triumph after the years of doubt and control he had woven through her life? Yet, this was a different Emma, one who had shed the skin of fear and self-doubt and now stood ready to confront the specter of her past. She straightened her back, a silent roar of defiance filling her. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil brewing inside. "I came to talk," he responded, his tone casual but his eyes sharp, dissecting her every move. "I heard about your meeting. Congratulations on the partnership. I guess." The words hung in the air, laden with implications. The familiar tightness gripped her chest, but she fought to push it down. That past had little power here. "Thanks, Adam. I appreciate your acknowledgement." The word tasted bitter on her tongue, but she forced a smile. He cocked an eyebrow, his lips curling into a smirk. "Look at you, Emma. All grown up and doing big things. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. You always talked about this dream, but I never thought you'd escape the cafe's daily grind." Her pulse quickened. His passive dismissal of her ambitions stoked her determination. "That daily grind was my stepping stone. I took my time to nurture my craft. Unlike some people, I don't rush into business for the sheer thrill of it." The initial surprise in his eyes shifted to a grudging respect that both unsettled and empowered her. Emma was no longer just the woman he dismissed but someone who had forged a path from her passions. As she prepared to walk away, Adam stepped closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "Emma, I don't want to disrupt your little fairy tale here, but we both know the odds are against you." His words dripped with a mixture of condescension and concern. "Do you really think they'll take you seriously once the excitement wears off?" Challenging the tight knot of anxiety in her stomach, she met his gaze, holding it steady. "What they see is a woman who has fought tooth and nail to be here. I'm not afraid of hard work. And if you can't recognize the strength in that, then maybe you don't know me at all." A flicker of something apprehension, perhaps, crossed his face. It was the first acknowledgement of her strength, however begrudging. She could sense his realization, and it ignited something deeper within her. Was she once defined by their relationship, or was her identity reshaping in his very presence? "I hope you can prove me wrong," he finally muttered, stepping back, his neutral demeanor cracking just enough to show uncertainty. "It's not about proving you wrong," Emma replied, the words flowing with newfound conviction. "It's about reclaiming my life, and I won't let you or anyone else dictate my worth." As she turned to leave, feeling buoyant for the first time in years, her heart raced with exhilaration. For every step away from Adam, she felt herself shedding remnants of his influence, rebuilding her identity one stride at a time. Suddenly, a new thought raced through her mind. Had this confrontation merely been the beginning? The fierce dialogue between them had ignited a passion for her culinary vision that she hadn't realized was lying dormant, waiting for recognition. Back at her cafe, Emma would need to outline her next steps carefully. She thought about incorporating elements of her personal journey into her menu, letting her struggles flavor her creations. But first, she had a meeting to prepare for, a critical session with the very executives who had seemed enthralled by her ideas. It was time to bake her vision into something tangible, something that transcended a partnership and blossomed into an emblem of her rebirth. As she stepped out into the sun-drenched street, excitement bubbled inside her. What could she achieve now? Pushing through the door of her cafe, she felt a rush of adrenaline course through her. But a couple of steps in, she halted. An unforeseen challenge lurked beyond her immediate triumph. What if the collaboration didn't turn out as she hoped, or worse yet, what if she hadn't prepared enough for what lay ahead? Emma squared her shoulders again, mentally crafting a strategy. She would take the lessons learned from both her past and her most recent encounters with Adam. The inception of her fresh identity would be brewed in resilience, optimism, and the courage to face the uncertainty lying ahead. But as she entered the cafe and caught her reflection in the glass, she realized there was still one lingering thread left from her past that she hadn't unspooled yet. Would releasing it completely lead her to greater discoveries? And what secrets might it reveal about the journey she had begun? Emma stepped further into her cafe, where the familiar mingling scents of freshly baked bread and brewed coffee wrapped around her like a warm embrace. Each aroma carried with it a memory, the long hours spent perfecting recipes, the quiet satisfaction of serving regulars who had turned into friends. These memories fueled her resolve to rebuild not just a business, but a life she could be proud of. At the counter, she glanced over her invoices and notes scattered about. The meetings she had attended, the strategic plans she had devised, all of it felt like a treacherous balancing act. Would the executives appreciate her creativity, or would they dismiss her ideas as whimsy? The pressure of their potential judgment hovered at the back of her mind, but she drove the feeling away, forcing herself to focus on the present. With a deep breath, she began outlining her vision for the menu. Ideas flowed freely, dishes inspired by her own journey. A rebirth bowl featuring ingredients that symbolized growth: quinoa for strength, roasted roots for resilience, and a rich, vibrant sauce that united it all. Yes, that could showcase who she was. It wasn't just food, it was an expression of her fight for self-worth and identity. As Emma scribbled on the whiteboard, she allowed herself to revel in the image of how this new menu could transform her cafe into more than just a place to eat. It could be a sanctuary for people to find comfort and inspiration, just as she had. But the excitement swiftly shifted into doubt. What if they didn't understand? What if the executives couldn't see the value in blending personal stories with culinary art? Each idea felt fragile, as if the slightest breeze could shatter it. She had made progress, but that lingering knot of apprehension hadn't vanished. She needed a plan to solidify her confidence. The door chimed, and her mother stepped in, sweeter than the pastries she baked. "Emma!" she exclaimed, her presence radiating warmth. "I brought your favorite herbal tea." "Thanks, Mom." Emma reached for the cup, the simple gesture grounding her swirling thoughts. As they sat at a cozy table for a quick catch-up, her mother's insight became a mirror for her own unresolved feelings. "Is everything all right? You look contemplative," her mom observed, peering at Emma over the rim of her cup. "I'm just thinking about the meeting. It's my chance to show them who I am, but what if it falls flat?" Emma responded, her voice laced with uncertainty. "Sweetheart," her mother smiled gently, "remember when you first started baking? You didn't get it perfect every time. But you kept going, learning, and adapting. Why should this be any different?" Her words struck a chord within Emma. The journey of her culinary craft echoed the journey of her life, filled with trials and eventual triumphs. Perhaps the fear of failure was just part of the process she had to embrace. Taking a sip of tea, she closed her eyes for a moment, letting the flavor mingle with her thoughts. "You're right. I need to stop worrying about their view of success. I should just be myself and express my passion." As if sensing the shift in Emma's energy, her mother leaned nearer. "What are you going to present to them? You've got more to convey than just food." Emma's pulse quickened. "I want to share my journey, how it's reflected in each dish. Something that connects back to my story. Perhaps even, lead with vulnerability." A revelation simmered at the edges of this decision. By revealing her authentic self, she would not only redefine her culinary identity but would also disarm any skepticism around her passions. Feeling emboldened, Emma sat straighter. I'll weave my life experiences into the menu. The menu will be my narrative. Just then, Emma's phone vibrated. It was a message from one of the executives she had met previously. Can we meet again tomorrow to discuss your ideas? We're curious about your vision. The weight of anticipation settled in her chest, tightening with potential. This ancient thread of uncertainty still loomed. What if I reveal too much? She pondered. Silently. Though the preparations for the meeting seemed overwhelming, she could feel a new layer of purpose emerging. Instead of being overshadowed by external expectations, she would take charge of her narrative. But as she prepared to respond to the message, an unexpected figure appeared in the café's doorway, someone she never anticipated seeing again. A shadow from her past that could unravel everything she was trying to build. Would their arrival steer her off course? With her heart racing, Emma glanced toward the door, ready to confront whatever awaited her. Emma's gaze locked onto the figure standing at the entrance, a cruel twist of fate sending a jolt through her chest. The last time she had seen Alex, the man who had always held a piece of her past, it ended with a silence that fortified the void between them, a silence dense with unspoken words and unresolved tension. Her instinct was to retreat, to hide behind the warm, inviting aroma of coffee and bread. But retreating into her café would ultimately mean retreating into herself. The memories of their shared laughter mingled with the pain of their last encounter, and she realized that confronting him might be the first real test of her newfound resolve. However, it wasn't just meeting Alex that weighed heavily on her mind, it was the impending meeting with the executives. Would she crumble under the pressure of those who held her future in their hands while facing someone who represented a significant chapter of her past? Taking yet another deep breath, she steeled herself and approached him. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a fragile veil of calmness. Alex's features softened, revealing a hint of remorse. "I've been meaning to talk to you, Emma. Can we?" His tone was earnest, yet riddled with uncertainty. "Now? Here?" She glanced around the café, concerned that personal matters would spill over the threshold of her professional life. Yet a part of her craved closure needed to confront the emotions she had tried to suppress while building her café's foundation. "Please," he said softly, "I just want to make sense of everything that happened." Emma's mind raced as she processed that request. Could she afford this conversation now, on the cusp of a potentially life-changing meeting? Was it wise to engage with the man who had once meant so much to her when the stakes were so high? The memory of their last fight clawed at her, feelings of betrayal and hurt fused with the hope of understanding. "All right," she finally answered, feeling a weight settle on her shoulders. "But let us step outside." The two moved toward the café's quaint patio, where intimate bistro tables danced beneath hanging lights. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in hues of gold and lavender, a metaphorically fitting backdrop for what felt like both a reunion and a reckoning. "Emma, I never meant for things to end up like they did," he began, voicing the apology that hung in the air like an unresolved melody. "I was stupid, focused on my career, and I pushed you away instead of leaning in." A mixture of old feelings surged within her. "You weren't alone in that. I had my ambitions too, Alex. You always knew that." The confession stirred the essence of who she had fought to become. "I should have fought for you." There was a moment of silence, broken only by the distant laughter of patrons. The weight of his admission seeped into her consciousness, forcing her to confront the impact of their shared past on her journey. "Maybe we both let fear dictate our decisions," she mused, recalling how vulnerability had often been perceived as weakness in their world. As they talked, Emma felt a flicker of strength igniting within her, firelight chasing away the shadows of past failures. This moment, however uncomfortable, was part of her narrative. It became clear to her that understanding one's history was crucial in shaping the future. But then, a noise interrupted her thoughts. A familiar voice, cutting through the atmosphere and laced with authority, called out from within the cafe. It was the executive team, the very audience she had to impress to redefine the next chapter of her life. The thrill of confronting her past was suddenly overshadowed by the urgency of the present. "I can't lose focus now, I have to prepare," Emma said, realizing that despite this brief reconnection with Alex, her true priority lay in forging her professional path. The moment had come to admit to herself the importance of setting aside distractions to pursue her dreams fiercely. "But I want to support you, Emma," Alex pressed, grief woven into his plea. Turning her head back toward him, she sensed a turning point. "Maybe we'll talk later," Emma replied, a bittersweet mixture of hope and uncertainty threading her words. With a firm step, she moved back inside the cafe, where her battleground awaited her. As the door closed behind her, Emma felt a rush of adrenaline. She could face Alex again, face whatever unfinished business they had crafted, but tonight she had to prepare for a conversation that would shape her future. The stakes had never been higher. What awaited her in that meeting? Would her vulnerability take root, or would it crumble under scrutiny? Emma stood before the boardroom table, her heart racing with mixed emotions of anticipation and unease. The polished surface of the table reflected the crisp, formal atmosphere of the corporate meeting, a stark reminder of both opportunity and expectation. She had come so far from serving coffee in her quaint little cafe, but now she was preparing to introduce her vision to a formidable audience. The executives settled into their seats, faces inscrutable yet brimming with curiosity. Emma took a deep breath and centered herself, recalling the encouragement from her mother and the pep talk she had shared with her own reflection earlier that morning. This was her moment to shine, a tangible culmination of her journey towards self-identity. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady yet warm. "I'm grateful for this opportunity to share my culinary vision with you today." As she spoke, Emma felt an electric pulse of energy surge through her. She deftly unveiled her concept, a menu that would intertwine stories of resilience and growth with each dish. "Every ingredient serves a purpose, reflecting not just flavors, but experiences I've lived. The rebirth bowl symbolizes strength, and my signature spicy chocolate tart highlights how sweetness can emerge from life's bitter moments." Gradually, Emma's confidence blossomed, and the chatter around the table quieted. She could see engagement in their eyes, and each nod of understanding fueled her. As she shared her personal narrative, she felt liberated, pouring the depth of her heart and soul into her presentation, transforming her vulnerabilities into professional assets. "Food has the ability to connect us," she emphasized, addressing her audience with sincerity. "It tells a story, evokes emotion, and for me, it has healed and transformed my life. I want our menu to not only satisfy appetites but also create a shared experience, a vibrant tapestry of stories." The room fell silent, and for a moment, the weight of her words hung palpably in the air. Just then, Caleb, the corporate client, leaned forward, his expression intrigued. "Emma, your passion is palpable, and it resonates strongly. I sense there's a profound depth in your vision that could really set us apart in the market." Their encouraging response ignited a spark within Emma, a sense of the recognition she had yearned for. Still, she knew the path ahead would not be without obstacles. Emma continued weaving her concept for the partnership, discussing how her cafe had cultivated community and authenticity. Anticipation swelled within her as they began discussing logistical elements, how to implement her ideas seamlessly and what resources would be at her disposal. These discussions felt exhilarating, and each moment carved out space for the identity she had fought so hard to embrace. The specter of her past faded further as she claimed this new professional territory. After a thorough back and forth, the executives exchanged approving glances, before Caleb addressed her. "Emma, we're inspired by your vision. We'd love to workshop further on how we can make this collaboration successful. Your stories are essential, they elevate the culinary experience." An exuberant thrill coursed through her as she absorbed the validation. For the first time, the words of her ex-husband faded to a distant whisper as applause from her audience resonated around her like a symphony, solidifying her transformation. Moments later, outside the conference room, Emma stood alone, the adrenaline still rushing through her. She reveled in the triumph, but something glimmered just beneath the surface. Her encounter with Alex lingered in her mind. She realized, encompassing this professional transition also meant coming to terms with her personal history. Confronting her past had been just as pivotal. As she stepped outside her cafe that evening, she found Alex waiting. His expression was earnest, the earnestness that had once made her heart flutter. "Emma, I've been thinking about what you shared," he said, a mixture of regret and admiration laced in his voice. "Can we talk?" he asked tentatively, and for the first time, she felt the weight of resolute closure in her chest. A cognizant realization washed over her. She was ready, perhaps for the first time, to sever the ties that had once held her captive. "Alex, I appreciate your support, but I've moved on from that part of my life." The words flowed with assurance, each one carrying the affirmation of her growth, confidence blossoming as her newfound identity recalibrated. "Of course, I understand," he replied with sincerity. Emma could see it, the respect framed in acceptance in his eyes. There was no longer the anger she had associated with their relationship, instead, closure resided within their exchange. As they parted ways, the heartache that had long wrapped around them dissipated like a fog under bright sunlight. Emma smiled, a warmth blossomed within her. That conversation had marked power, a solid affirmation that she had conquered not just her fears, but the ties that had previously defined her. Stepping through the door of her cafe felt different now, the ambience thrummed with energy that mirrored her own personal transformation. She stood along the counter, watching her loyal customers savor the flavors she poured her heart into. Her journey had indeed been a rebirth. Emma had transformed from a woman shackled by her past to an empowered chef boldly asserting her identity. As she served fresh delights and fostered meaningful connections within her cafe's everyday rhythm, she could feel the resonance of her story echoing. The moment proved she was not only on a professional trajectory but also an inevitable journey toward her fulfilled self. Emma felt a surge of determination. Her narrative was now fervently intertwined with ambition, authenticity, and renewed purpose. At last, she had arrived, a chef, a creator, and most importantly, a woman who recognized her own worth once and for all. And in that realization, Emma knew her future held so much more than dreams. It held the essence of who she was always meant to be. Don't wait any longer. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Show your support now by leaving a like to fuel this channel's growth. We want to hear your thoughts, so comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. And don't forget to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this conclusion. Your engagement is the lifeblood of our journey together.